Hi everyone, you welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we'll be sewing this shawl collar jacket. I made use of Ankara fabric and bridal satin for the lining. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So guys, let's jump right into it. I'm done cutting the fabric and the lining for the jacket. So for the lining, I made use of bridal satin, and this is the facing for the jacket. I gum stay on the facing of my jacket. Then this is the side front. Now we're sewing the back. So I'll go to the sewing machine. I'll be sewing from the neckline here down this place on half inches, and when I get to somewhere here, I'll sew down a bit, then I'll continue to sew on half inches down this way. I'll do this for the center back, and I'll repeat the same thing also on the lining, but for the lining I'll stop here. I will not sew straight down like this. I'm through with the sewing of the back, the center back. Now the next you have to do is to launch this place, this side here at the vent. This you not launch through just a bit. You can see the way I launch mine. Now open the center back up this way, and I will give it a good press. I'll do this for the main fabric, and I'll repeat the same thing also on the lining. I'm done pressing it, and for the lining for the back, you can see I not sew all through to the side of the vent. No, I stop my sewing here. Now the next we have to do, you make sure you press the right side of your vent the way I did mine on the lining, and on the main fabric also you press the hem of your jacket and the vent this way, the right side. So now let's work on the lining first. So this right side of my lining here, I will mark. After getting the line, you add seam allowance of half inches this way and half inches here also, like this. You can see how it is. So now we're cutting this out. Okay, now we've cut this out. So we keep the lining aside, then work on the main fabric. After pressing the hem of your jacket, you press this other side also. Now we have to work on the vent. You make sure this angle is out this way, and you can see how it is. You make sure this side is equal. You can see it's equal here and it's equal here also. So now I'll use my iron to press this down like this, and I will do the same thing here also. This way we are getting the gator like line. So now the next we have to do is to cut this out so it will not be too bulky. You cut out. I will turn it to the back this way, and I will go and sew this down on the line we have here. I'm through with the sewing of the vent. You can see how it is. Now we turn it to the front like this. So this is how it looks. I'll give this a good press. So I'm done with the pressing. Yeah, before I forget, when you are sewing, you will not sew to the end. You will leave like half inches so you can use it to turn the lining. This is the back of the jacket, and you bring your lining. The front of your lining will be facing you, and the back of the jacket will be facing you. You bring this side of your lining and you give it a bit of lunge here on half inches. Then here on the hem of the lining also, you give it a bit of lunge also on half inches. So now you flip it this way. You make sure the side of your jacket is up, and now you turn it this way. I'll go and sew this down on half inches from this side here down to the hem here on half inches. I'm through with the sewing of this side. You can see how it looks at the front. Now the next you have to do is to turn it to this other side this way, and we'll go and sew on half inches. I'm through with the sewing of the back vent. Here you can see how it looks. This is the front, and this is how it looks at the back. Now after doing this side of the vent is a bit complex, but this other side is very easy to sew. Now the next we have to do is to sew this side of the vent. You make sure it is like this, then you flip it to the back this way. You can see how it is now. Go and sew on half inches. So after sewing this hem now, the next you have to do is to come in from this side here and turn it to the back this way. Then you make sure you fold it like this, so it will be equal on this side here. So now go and sew it on half inches like this to the hem here. I'll stop. I'm through with the sewing and I've given it a good press, and you can see here also I've pressed this down. Put the lining this way, you bring it up this way. So now we sew this on 0.25 so we can secure this place down. You make sure the two lining are together, then the main fabric. So now go and sew this. I'm through with the sewing of the back vent of the jacket. Now the next we have to do is to join the side back to the center back. And what I did is that I loosened the hem of my side center back a bit. So now I'll bring in the side back. So now you bring the front of the side back and the front of the center back to be together this way. And now go and sew this on half inches. You start to sew from the hem of your jacket down to the shoulder. You sew on half inches down to the shoulder. I'll do this on this side of my back. Now I'll repeat the same thing also on the other side. Here I'm through with the joining of the sides. Now the next we have to repeat the same thing also on the lining. For my lining, I made use of wider satin. I would advise when you want to make your own jackets, you should use this cotton lining. In the market, some people call it spider lining. That's what I would advise you use. Now we repeat the same thing also on the side of the lining. I will join the side back to the center back of my lining. I'm through with the joining of the lining. Now the next you have to do is to sew it down to this end here. You sew the lining to the fabric on the hem. So now before you sew, you make sure you open up your seam this way like this, because we are going to iron this down. So you open it up like this. Now we'll go and sew from this end here down to the side of my hem of the jacket. I'll do this for this side, and I'll repeat the same thing also on this other side of the hem of the jacket. I'm through with the sewing of the hem of the jacket. Now the next we have to do is to give this a good press. You press your seams open this way. You do this for the lining and the main fabric. You press your seams open like this, and you press the hem of your jacket. Now we keep the back side at side so we can work on the front of the jacket. So for the front of the jacket, you bring your side front and your center front this way. So now go and join from the hem. It's from the hem you start to join your jacket. From the hem of the jacket, I will join on half inches down to the shoulder. I'll do this for this side of the front, and I will repeat the same thing also on the lining and the other side. I'm through with the joining of the side front to the center front, and I've given it a good press. After sewing, it's good to press your seams open the way I did mine. Now I'll turn this to the front. You can determine if you want to put the double breast pocket or the welt pocket. So for the jacket, I'll be making use of the welt pocket. So for my welt pocket, I'll come down from the shoulder down to my waist, which is 19 inches. And if you want to make use of the double breast pocket, you come down from your shoulder down to where your bust point is, which is, let's say mine is 12 inches. I'll mark 12 inches here. This is when you want to make the double breasted pocket. And you fold your collar like this here. Then you come in after your collar by 1 inches like this. Then now you mark the width of your pocket, how wide you want yours. You can make use of 3 inches or 3.5. Now let's do 3.5 inches here, and you just connect the line. This is when you're making a double breasted pocket, but I'm not using this. I'm using the welt pocket. So I will just mark from my shoulder down to 19 inches here. And I'll connect this line with a straight line. So now after marking the line for the pocket, now come in for my button allowance. You know, the button allowance we had was 1.5, then half inches for seam allowance. That will make it 2 inches. And I'll come in by 1 inches here. So now here from the center front, we came in by 3 inches. Then now from this 3 inches mark here, I will check how wide I want my pocket to be. So the width of my pocket, I want it 6 inches wide. So you can see how wide it is here. Then we'll check what we have on the side here. We have 5 inches. By the time we join 1 inches for seam allowance, we'll have space at the side like 4 inches. So it's okay that way. And you can still come in if you want to. When you notice there's much space at the side, you can come in if you want to, but okay like this. So now bring out my facing here. Here I have the width of my facing to be 6 inches. I've made use of the stay on my facing. This is the back. Now we'll pin this down on this line we have here. I'm through with the pinning down. I'll come in from this my facing here by half inches. This is where I will stop the sewing. Then here also I'll come in also by half inches. That's where we'll stop the sewing. I'm making use of bio so you can see the markings. So now I'll come up from here, this line here, this bio mark here. I'll be sewing on 0.25. Just using my eyes to gauge it down. 0.25. Where I'm marking, this is where I will go and sew down. I will sew down here to this other end here. Now I'm through with the sewing. Now you fold this way so you can slit it open. Then now you give it a lunge here so you can see how it looks. Now we'll turn this to the back. So now I'll give this a good press. I'm through with the pressing of the pocket. You can see how it looks at the front. You flip it to the back this way. The down of your welt pocket, you fold it up like this to cover the facing this way, to cover it this way, and you press it down with your iron. So after pressing down, the next you have to do is to secure this place down, and you repeat the same thing also on this other side. I'm through with the sewing of the welt pocket. You can see how it looks at the front. Now let me show you the back. Yeah, this is the back of the welt pocket. You can see why I say you should sew this down. Now the next we have to do is to bring in the pocket. The width of my pocket is by 7 inches and the length is by 14 inches. So now the first thing I'll do is to sew the front of my pocket this way. Sew it down like this on half inches here from the hem here. And I'll go and sew this down. After sewing this, then I'll come also here and I will sew the up also on half inches. I'm through with the sewing of the welt pockets. You can see how it looks, and I've gone ahead to sew the sides also. Now the next we have to do is to sew the lining to the blazers. Now you sew first on your hem. I'll be sewing the hem on half inches, and I'll make sure the joining at the sides here are together. So I'll go and sew this down on half inches here. Then I'll repeat the same thing also on this other side. So after sewing the hem of the front jacket, now the next you have to do is to sew the center front, the collar, this side here that has the collar. That's where you sew. Now go and sew this on half inches. You start to sew from the hem of your jacket down to the collar here. This is where you stop your sewing. I'll do this on this side of the front, and I'll repeat the same thing also on the other side of my front. I'm through with the sewing of the center front to the collar. Now the next you have to do after sewing it, you have to give it a lunge. So by the time you press it, it will lay down flat all through. Now after doing this, I will give it a good press. When making a blazer, you have to press it very well so it will come out neatly finished. I'm through with the pressing. You can see how it looks. This is how the shawl collar will look by the time we are done with it. The next we have to do is to join the jacket at the collar. You make sure the lining to lining is together and the fabric to fabric is together. So now you pin down, so the joining at the collar will be together. Now I'll go and sew on 1/2 inches from this joining here down to this place on 1/2 inches. Then I will repeat the same thing also on the lining. So guys, I'm through with the joining of the collar. So this place will not be bulky, just trim it out a little. So now I've turned it to the front. This is how it look at the front. Next you have to do to launch this side here, the shoulder here. You launch the fabric to fabric together for the front on 1/2 inches. Then you put the same thing also here also on 1/2 inches. Now bring in the back. So for the back, you will just launch only the fabric separately, then you launch the lining separately also, like this. You can see the way I'm launching it. Now I will launch the lining also separately, but for the front, you know, we launch the fabric and the lining together, but for the back you launch them separately, the way I'm doing it. So after launching, now we bring the back this way and you bring the front this way. You join the joining of the center back and the collar, the joining of the collar together, and pin down. So after pinning down, where we have the launch on the neckline, this way here, like this. So you pin down also. Now we'll join the fabric to fabric first before you join the lining to lining. You pin the shoulder down too, and you repeat the same thing also on this other side of your shoulder. Go to the sewing machine. I'll be joining on 1/2 inches. I'll make sure the joining at the collar is together with the joining at the center back. I'll go and sew on 1/2 inches down to this shoulder. Then I'll repeat the same thing also on this other shoulder. I'm through with the sewing of the fabric to fabric. You can see how it is. Look at where we launch. It will give you access to sew the shoulder. Now the next you have to do is to sew the lining to lining. You come in from this side here and make sure the joining at the center back and the joining at the collar is together this way. Now I'll pin this down. Now you go and sew on 1/2 inches, lining to lining. After sewing lining to lining, now the next you have to do is to secure the both together, the lining and the fabric. You bring it up this way so we can hold the lining and the main fabric together this way. So you just sew on 1/2 inches from the center front to somewhere here, and you do the same thing also on this other side. So I'm done securing it down. You can see how I sew. Just sew from here down to the side and I stop. Now secure the lining and the main fabric together. You can see how it looks at the back. So now the next we have to do is to join the jacket at the side on 1 inches. So now you make sure you launch the hem of your jacket this way, because we'll be joining fabric to fabric, lining to lining. You do the same thing also here. You launch it this way. Now where you launch, so this place we launch, we make the front and the back together this way. The launch should be together like this. So now my seam allowance I added is 1 inch. So I'll be taking in 1 inch. I'll go and join fabric to fabric, then lining to lining. I'm done with the sewing of the sides. Now I'll press my seams open. You open up your seams this way and you press it. I'll do this for the lining. I'm through with the pressing of the sides of the jacket. Now the next we have to do is to keep this jacket aside so we can work on the sleeve. For the sleeve, I will have to join the side we cut out back this way. From the hem, you join on 1/2 inches down to the up of the sleeve here. I'm through with the joining and I've given it a good press. You can see how it looks. After sewing it, you press your seams open. You can see the front of my sleeve. Now the next we have to do is to join the sleeve with the lining. So this is my lining. You make sure the front of your sleeve, the main fabric, is facing up, and your lining, the front of your lining is facing the front of the main fabric, and you make sure the joining here is together like this. So now I'll go and sew this on 1/2 inches on the hem of my sleeve. I'll do this for this sleeve, and I'll repeat the same thing also on the other sleeve. I'm through with the sewing of the sleeve to the lining. Now you fold your sleeve this way together like this. You make sure you open it down this way, and you join it together on 1 inches down to the armhole. Then you come also on the lining, you put the same thing on 1 inches down to the armhole of the lining. I'm through with the joining of the sleeve at the sides. You can see I join the lining separately and the main fabric separately. Now the next you have to do is to put your hand in the way I put my hand, this way. Then you turn your sleeve to the front like this, and now give this a good press. I'm done pressing my sleeve. You can see how it looks. This is the back of the sleeve, and this is the front of the sleeve, and look at how the side looks now, and this is the inside. You can see how neatly finished it is. Now to fix the sleeve, you make sure you've launched the center of your sleeve the way I did mine. Now we'll be fixing fabric to fabric first, then lining to lining. So you make sure the joining at the side of your sleeve and the joining at the sides of your jacket is together this way. Then you pin down, come in from the armhole this way, so you flip it inside this. Now you make sure the launch we have at the center of the sleeve and the joining at the shoulder is together. So now I'm going to sew my sleeve round the armhole. I'm through with the fixing of the sleeve, fabric to fabric. I've done this one also, fabric to fabric. Now we'll open it up here. Now we have to fix lining to lining. So to fix the lining to lining, you bring out the lining of the sleeve like this, then the lining of the jacket, then you put them in together. You come in from this other armhole here, and you make sure you hold the both together this way here. And now you make sure the joining at the sides of the jacket and the sleeve is together. So now we'll go and sew round the armhole of the lining. I'm through with the fixing of lining to lining. You can see how it looks, and this is the sleeve. Now the next we have to do, we have to repeat the same thing also on this other sleeve, lining to lining. But to do that, you have to come in from the lining here. I'll use my blade to open out space. So now you open up with the blade. So now we're going in from here. This is where we'll go in from. So now before you go in, you make sure you arrange the side of your jacket and the side of the sleeve together. Now you make sure this is pinned down. You pin it down this way. Start pinning down. Now you come in from this opening we have here like this. You bring it out from here. Now when you get this right this way, so now you see this is how it will look. Sew the sleeve on 1/2 inches round the armhole, and before you do that, make sure you launch the center of your sleeve. So the center of your sleeve and the joining on the shoulder will be together this way. So now we're going to sew this on 1/2 inches. I'm through with the fixing of the lining to lining. Now the next we have to do is to close up this place we used to pass in to fix the sleeve. I'll make use of needle and thread to close it up. You just tack it stylishly. I'm done with the tacking of the sleeve, and I've given the jacket a good press. The next you have to do is to tack down your button, and you don't have to press on the collar. You open it up to press it. That way it will bounce back. Thank you all for watching to the end. I really appreciate you all. See you on the next one. God bless you.